Good evening. I am Thomas Charles McDevitt, Director of the McWidget Museum, and welcome to the first episode of Wands, Batons, Sticks, and Other Long, Skinny Things. But before we begin, I wish to address the charges by some in the stick community who have questioned our research and the authenticity of the items in our exhibits. Let you be assured that we do not take these charges seriously. The close minded individuals who have limited their research to mere science and history. We, on the other hand, have embraced the new and exciting technique known as alternate truth, in which rumors, unproven family lore, forgeries, and lies are given equal weight as the rigorous analysis performed by the so-called experts, the elite of stickology, which we reject wholeheartedly. Our first installment of this series will cover the cornerstone of our museum, the Cady stick collection, which was donated by Barbara Chapman Cady, who now serves as the chairwoman of our board of overseers. The Cady stick collection was based on the merger of two great New England families. Sheldon Hutchins Cady's family traces its roots back to the founding of Rhode Island. Barbara Lyman Urquhart's family traces its roots back to the Mayflower. There are no more famous Mayflower passengers than Miles Standish, Priscilla Mullins, and John Alden, all of whom are Barbara's ninth great-grandparents. This rose was crafted by John Alden, who as a cooper had the tools and materials to make such an item, and was given to Priscilla as a token of his esteem, much to the chagrin of Miles Standish, his romantic rival. Another Cady Mayflower relative, the Billingtons, do not carry the same prestige as the Aldens. Father John, his wife, and two young sons were not part of the separatist sect, but were considered strangers and of a lower social class. The two young boys, John and Francis, were full of mischief and often getting into trouble. During the hard first winter, the two hellions nearly blew up the Mayflower. Once on land, the two imps continued to get into trouble. Young John wandered off and was taken hostage by a group of Indians still angry about the grain the Pilgrims had stolen earlier in the year. The Indians planned to extract retribution from the English, failed because Johnny made so much trouble that the Indians were forced to pay the Pilgrims a bounty to take the young gentleman off their hands, but not before he pilfered a cherished ceremonial stick on the way out of the village. The senior John, not to be outdone by his sons, was executed for first-degree murder in 1630, the first Englishman executed in the New World. Barbara's 10th great-grandfather was Roger Williams, founder of the Rhode Island colony and the father of religious liberty in America. After being expelled from the Massachusetts colony, Williams took refuge with the Narragansett Indian tribe in what is now Rhode Island. He learned their language and treated them fairly. This peace pipe was given to Williams as a token of friendship. The symbols on the pipe's bowl represent the three sisters of Indian agriculture and diet: beans, corn, and squash, plus a fourth important crop, cannabis sativa, commonly known as marijuana, which no doubt was an important part of any successful negotiation. There is no more heroic and tragic Cady ancestor than Barbara's eighth great grandmother, Mary Barrett Dyer, who was hung on Boston Common in 1660 for her refusal to either leave the Massachusetts Bay Colony or to renounce her Quaker faith. It is believed that this stick was crafted from a piece of wood taken from the scaffolding, and a drop of her martyred blood was embedded in its knob. Mary's statue now sits next to the main entrance of the Massachusetts State House. Benjamin Church, Barbara's eighth great-grandfather, was born in Plymouth in 1639 and grew up exploring the woods and fields around his home. He learned much from his Indian neighbors and absorbed their language and customs. When the King Philip's War broke out in 1676, Church established a fighting unit that came to be known as the Rangers, that used the same irregular tactics as their Indian enemies. Church recruited many friendly natives to fight against the renegades. The eagle head knob is all that remains of the tribute stick given to Church by his Indian allies. The one stick that the museum does not possess, despite our great efforts, is King Philip's War Club. Barbara's great-grandfather was one of the few of her ancestors whose roots did not reach back into the colonial era of the United States. Alexander Urquhart was born in Scotland in 1865 and immigrated to the United States as a young man, where he established a successful bakery in Concord, Massachusetts. It was said that he baked the wedding cake for every bride in town. He designed and used this offset spreader to frost these cakes. More impressive than his business success was the success of his two sons, both of whom attended Massachusetts Institute of Technology and had successful careers in business. Sheldon Hutchins Cady, Barbara's father, suffered the heartbreak of losing his mother at age 8. His father, who also lost his mother as a boy, was a somber man who did not show much emotion towards his son. When Sheldon was 10 years old, he attended a camp in Jefferson, Maine, where he found friendship and the support from his counselors. He would return for the next 8 summers, the last two as a counselor. At the end of each summer, Each camper would take a piece of the kindling home with them, with the thought that they would return with it the next summer to help start the first fire of the season. Both of his daughters would also attend the same camp. Barbara had many friends with whom she enjoyed good times, good food, and a nice bottle of wine. In one apartment building in Cambridge, Barbara was neighbors with a woman named K. George Roberts, who was a music professor and a conductor of several orchestras around the world. One evening, when Barbara returned home, Kay popped her head out and asked her friend if she wanted to have a glass of wine. Barbara agreed, and one glass turned into a bottle, and then they ordered Chinese food. At this point, Barbara asked the maestro how to conduct. Kay demurred and said that she couldn't because she didn't have a baton. Barbara then fashioned this baton out of a chopstick and a wine cork. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Goodbye until next time when we present Sticks in World History. This is Thomas Charles McDevitt. Good night.